99X, it's Barnes and Leslie. Man, these stories are crazy. We're taking these 23andMe stories at 470-741-4999.
There are so many of these stories where people really want to find out about their, their family tree or whatever. But good morning. Who's this?
This is Mark James.
How's it going, Mark?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing good.
Mark, what's your story?
I've known my whole life that I had a brother out there somewhere. It turns out that he had no idea anything about his whole life at all, which is the same case for most stories like that. What makes this kind of special is I'm 38 years old. I've known for a long time there is that person.
So wait, hold on. You knew how? Like, how did you know that he was out there?
Yeah, how did you know?
My mom. I have 4 siblings. We all had the same mom. We had over 17 years between the oldest and the youngest. So there's a big span of time, and a lot of life in between all that. And when my mom was 18, she had a child, put him up for adoption. It went through the Catholic Church in Jacksonville, Florida.
Man, same as mine. These are crazy how many adoptions are going on like that.
So you knew he was out there and you wanted to find him.
Absolutely. Me and my other brother that I've known my whole life, who was also older than me, we searched. We looked, the internet was primitive in the beginning for searching for stuff like that.
Yep.
There wasn't a big database. The crazy part is my mom would have dreams and tell us stories about that because there's going to be a link between her and her offspring somewhere. Well, she had a dream that this child, Philip, that he was named Philip, he would show up at my Uncle David's house near Jacksonville. In her dream, he boosted cars or raced cars in some way, worked on cars, and he wore a leather jacket and blondish hair. Well, fast forward to 2019, the brother I've known my whole life here in Atlanta passes away.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was horrible. But nonetheless, for Christmas that year, I would find all this out later, but for Christmas that year, his wife gives him an ancestry kit for Christmas. In January, he starts, the first person that comes up is my Uncle David, the same person that my mother said he would contact. He contacts my Uncle David because he had also done a 23andMe, and he was in the database, so he came up as the closest living kin.
Wow.
By February, I was talking to my brother. His name is still Philip, but everyone calls him Mike. He does have blondish colored hair. He did race cars in the 90s in South Florida. He was a drag racing champion in South Florida. We listened to the same type of music. We had the same exact interests. We both loved Braves baseball, even though we grew up 1,000 miles apart from each other. Totally blown my life away to have lost someone, and in the blink of an eye, turn and find someone I've been searching for my whole life.
Dude.
I just got chills.
Yeah,
that
same.
is unbelievable.
So now you guys are thick as thieves now? You're tight?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. He was in my wedding.
Isn't it weird? Tell me if you had this moment, because when I met my brother who passed away's daughter, because that's who contacted me, when you meet them and you met your brother for the first time and you're looking at their face, isn't it crazy how you kind of go somewhere else? Like there's talking and there's people, talking and saying things, but you're fixated on breaking down your genes that you're seeing in this person.
Yep, absolutely. And it's one half because he still doesn't know who his dad is.
Oh, man. This tech, although those companies are having major issues.
That's a great story, though. You found your brother.
Think about Gen X just alone and how many of these stories, because of the era it was, late 60s into the 70s, where these babies were born and the mom was super young and either the parents shuttled them off to go, somewhere for 9 months, and then the baby's born, then the baby goes to the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church figures it out. Yep, and then you're out in the world, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this is weird. I got a call from, whoever.
Sometimes it can turn your world upside down. We appreciate you sharing this story, too.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. It's kind of lived in my heart for the past 4 years, since all this took place. So
to me, it's crazy how many of these stories there are because they're full in my inbox, both voicemail inbox and email inbox, and you would never think that there are this many of these stories that are out there. Well, thank you very much. Have a great day. We appreciate you listening.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, Morning X, good morning. What's your name?
It's Todd.
Todd. So you have one of these 23andMe type stories as well, right?
I do.
Hit me.
All right. So when I was a young man, I had been told my entire life that my grandfather and grandmother had been sadly killed in a motorcycle accident. My grandfather had survived World War II, came home, was riding around on his motorcycle back home at the farm, and a farm truck had hit him with my grandmother as a passenger. Fast forward to when I'm about 13 or 14, and there's a knock at the door, and I go answer the door, and the lady standing there says, I'm your grandmother, and I'm looking for your mother.
Whoa.
And I'm puzzled because I only know one grandmother, And so as this woman is at the door, I'm a little confused because I've been told I don't have another grandmother, and she looks exactly like, my mother and my aunt combined, and I'm thinking this has to be true. And I thought, somehow my mother was unaware that, her mother had survived this crash. And so not thinking, I got in the car saying, look, I'm going to take you down to the tennis courts where my parents are so you can say hey to, your daughter. What a great thing, right?
You're just going right to it. So you didn't think this was a scam. You thought for sure because she looked like your mom, you said?
Oh, she looked like a blend of my mother and my aunt. The spitting image. I thought, yes, this is just an older version of my mom and my aunt, for sure.
Well, how old are you at the time?
I was 14 years old.
14. So you grab them, put them in the car, and you're going to go surprise them at their tennis match.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, here's your mom?
Yeah, I'm thinking this is a great thing. Because as a young kid, I'm thinking,
boy.
How did my mom not know her mother survived this crash? Like there was some, something happened, Well, that, of course, is not what happened. My mother had decided this person was, so toxic or what have you that she had just basically decided that in her world, her, mom was dead to her. And so I found out, when I got to the tennis courts, my mother kind of panicked that I'd gotten in the car with these folks, and she pulled them aside. I don't know what was said, but I never saw or heard from that grandmother ever again. Yeah, but later in life, the neat thing that's come from it is I learned the story that apparently after my grandfather passed, my grandmother kind of had difficulties and ran with the wrong crowd. And my mom and her sister had to be raised by the grandparents, not because they had lost both parents, but because the state had insisted, based on whatever had gone on. But I then found that she had gone on to be more successful in life later once she kind of pulled it together. And so I have uncles that I wasn't aware of until these last couple of years. And it's really just a great, family story because it shows that something good can come from anything, humble beginnings. I've got an uncle that owns a trucking business in Alabama, and he's a big Auburn fan, where I happen to go to college and get my degrees. And so he and I have become good buddies. And then another uncle had gone into the Navy and risen through the ranks very well, and he was either a captain of a ship or a rear admiral or something, something very high ranking in the Navy before he retired. It, comes to pass that, although that was a very strange encounter in the end, it turned out to add a few really neat, uncles to the mix, distant uncles to the mix.
That's very cool.
Isn't that weird that one little speed bump of, the grandmother caused with the mother the friction, but yet on the other side, once you got past that situation, there was some goodness. And that's what's weird about this whole 23andMe when you start finding these things out, like what lies, all the things that are opening up for you.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that we all really have to look at life in a very, universal way, because you just never know what's out there for you. Everyone is, very vacuumed into a very small way of thinking a lot of times, and you never know what opens up out there for you when, when it does happen.
Well, thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for listening.
Have a great day.
You too.
Good Morning X with Barnes and Leslie.